Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special event on the Human Echoes channel. We talk about movies a lot on this channel. I do not so much anymore, but I have come out of semi-retirement in the movie review world because of a special thing in my heart. Netflix has an original property. Their third year has just happened.
I got roped into this, by the way.
Okay,
Completely roped
so
into this.
we're going to talk about A Christmas Prince right now. I loved A Christmas Prince 1. I watched A Christmas Prince 2, and I brought this up because A Christmas Prince 3 came out like yesterday, and you and Joe and Tony had never heard of it.
I hadn't even heard of it.
I
I
said
think
Joe
Joe
had
had
heard of it.
heard of
I'm sorry.
it.
That was a lie.
Yeah. Yeah, I hadn't even heard of it. I knew nothing about it. And Al came with a proposition that he wanted to do this reviewing of all three movies. And he was like, would anybody be interested? And I was like, oh, my day got free out of nowhere. Sure, I'll help out, I guess. And I regret it. I'm just saying that I regret putting 4.5 hours of my life into this review.
I wish I could have made Tony do this. I so desperately wish because I know I'm gonna get some salt from you. It would have been so much worse from Tony.
Yes.
Tony would have just been like the most miserable human being watching all
I
three
was
of these.
fucking miserable. Excuse me. You can bleep that out, but the
I'm
second
not
one
bleeping anything
especially,
out. I'm too lazy. I hope you don't
the
swear too much.
the first one, I gotta say, the first one was not terrible. It was bearable. I didn't have many comments to give on the first one in our like group chat thing. Um my huge problem came when the second movie
Well,
arrived.
let's
And
talk
I
about the
guess we'll
first
talk
one
about
though.
the first one.
So because we're here because of the first one. The first one comes to Netflix, and Netflix is trying all kinds of stuff to get popular. And you're on Netflix. It's Christmas time. There's a certain kind of movie you might want to watch at Christmas. It's the rom-commy Hallmark Channel original movie Christmas type movie
Christmas
thing.
Christmas time rom com kind
Right.
of.
I think they must have hundreds of them from the Hallmark Channel specifically at this point. So Netflix rips that off. They come up with their Christmas concept. It's a lady reporter. She's sent to cover the coronation of this dude in, I want to say it's
This
Moravia?
runaway playboy prince is what they describe
But he's
him as.
not!
Aldovenia.
No, that's the wrong one. It's Aldovia.
Aldovia.
That's the
Yes,
annoying
that one.
dad's way of pronouncing it. We'll get to him in the second and third movie. She goes to talk about to quote unquote cover this coronation, despite the fact that she has no experience as a reporter. She's apparently a decent writer. She has no experience as a journalist.
Right.
Just
That
like
they give you any information on.
right.
They don't say she went to school for it. They don't say that she was a part of her like high school paper or even college or anything like that. Her job at the
Beat
magazine.
Now. Beat Now is
Beat
the name of the
Now.
magazine. They call it
Was
out in the
the
second
copy
movie too.
desk.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Was she worked at the copy desk. She fixed other people's writings. She didn't even do
Right.
anything like sort of writing
And
herself.
that's how you know she's a good person because she's put upon by all these other worse characters who are like, "We'll fix it for us." Like, this is a major rewrite. I don't care. I'm off to the bar. I'm a man. There's a little bit of like a sexism kind of angle in the first one that's not not really present so much in the other two, but like she's working in a mostly male dominated newsroom except for her best friend who's like she has the two best friends, like the ethnic girl and the gay guy, so that you know that she's not a Trump person, I
Diverse
guess.
and she's willing to love everyone. Yeah.
Right. Just like they don't have anything to do with the movie. They're on her webcam for the entire
Not even a
first movie.
little.
But
No, they
they
convinced her to
exist.
do the bad thing later on. They were
Yes.
like the evil shoulder angel instead of like the good one later on in the movie. But then that's it. They had like a total of maybe 3 minutes time.
But the only this all of this reporter stuff is just a setup to get her into the palace because she sneaks in because they're not doing any reporter news room stuff, so she can get into the palace, so she can accidentally befriend the crippled princess who is a Tiny Tim ripoff. Go ahead.
But not even that. She sneaks, so they cancel the press conference, and then so all the press leave, and she's like, I can't do this. This is my first big break. Like, and so she sneaks into the castle, and then they're like, oh, you must be the tutor, and they give the name and like the occupation and everything, and she's like, yes. And then she just plays on with this for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, she doesn't. She's not even proactive enough to come up with her own lie. Someone else supplies a lie to her, and she's like, "I like this lie. Yes, we will go
Sure.
forward with this."
Exactly.
And then the rest of the movie is exactly what you would expect. There's a handsome prince. She's a pretty girl. She doesn't have to do anything to get him because
Right. Because she's so down to earth and different
right.
from everybody else that is a part of this lifestyle. But also, there's blatant, I don't know if you would call it plagiarism, but they rip off almost every single Christmas movie, romantic comedy movie. Disney, they ripped off, Al noticed,
The Beauty and the Beast scene where the beast fights off the wolves. They do that, but like way lamer. They do Tiny Tim from Christmas Carol, where that's the little girl. She's got, crippled, but still has a great attitude, and it's Christmas time. There is not a single thing in this movie
royal movies. Yeah.
that didn't come from somewhere else. But
Not a single thing.
it's perfectly fine. It's charming. It's inoffensively bad, right? Like, it's bad. It is bad.
Yeah.
I will give you that it's bad. But you can watch it and you're like, yeah, like it's silly in spots.
I probably feel goody,
Right.
movie during the first one. I think it's sit downable.
You can have it on.
Yeah.
Nobody does anything like in the background for whatever your Christmas party. Nobody's gonna like drop any major swear words. There's not gonna be anything anybody's gonna object to. It's the most vanilla. That nothing's gonna happen either. the and the first movie, the drama beyond the romance that you see revolves around the question of whether or not Richard will take the throne.
And then they set up the confrontation of if she's going to reveal, the bad stuff,
right?
Like, and the fact that she's been lying to everybody. Like, that's like the main confrontation within this movie.
And it gets the lying thing actually gets glossed over basically immediately. Yes. But the other stuff really, I would say the part that bugs me the most about this is how confused it is, because all of these movies want to have this like central drama, but they don't really know what to do with it. They don't want to give it too much stakes because someone might start to get nervous. And if you get nervous, you're feeling bad, and you're not feeling bad is not what these movies are about. Everybody needs to feel good all the time. So there's the prince thinking about abandoning his crown, but on top of that, there's the potential for somebody to take it away from him because he's adopted. I guess spoilers, if you clicked on this video and you didn't think we were going to spoil A Christmas Prince or A Christmas Prince 2
We're spoiling
or A Christmas Prince 3, I'm sorry. But like, so you have this will he or won't he that's also like conflicted with, oh, but they're going to take it away from him. So does he like either let him choose for some reason that he wants to be king, which we don't really see. We don't, in my opinion anyway, I never got the feeling that he changed in some fundamental way to be like, yes, I want to be the king now. They just throw that sort of wishy-washiness out the window once there is an outside threat, which comes in the form personified by Simon. And Simon, best character in the series by far. Not in the first movie, I will say. In the first movie, he's just a cookie-cutter villain. He is annoying and smarmy.
The family, the next in line who wants the crown.
He wants
the crown
crones
for himself. He wants the crown. That's taken from every other, like I thought of Princess Diary is like the way better version of these movies.
Okay. I remember watching those a long time ago, and not hating them. So So
This
you
is like the discount version of those.
they solve all of that in like a a college lecture hall, which is my favorite set in the first movie. They have like their parliament, which they can never pan across to show all the people in because they don't have that many extras because these movies are incredibly cheap.
You can
Just
tell how
super
cheap
cheap.
they are.
But they find a magic, it's not literally magic, but from the plot perspective, the king who had died essentially just changed the law and just like wrote
He
down a
hid
thing. He's
it.
like, I changed the law. I hide it in an acorn. They open the
Give it to you for
acorn.
Christmas.
Yes, he gives it to them. Doesn't tell anybody. It's a weird. So many. Again, there's like a lot of things that don't make sense about this that you don't have to think about that hard. But it is annoying.
Oh,
Go ahead.
but wait, the girl that's already, I don't know if she was already in New York, but she had to turn around. She's the one that figured out that he had changed the law and hid it in the acorn. Like, not
But
any of
but
us.
apropos of nothing. Okay, her dad says to her a thing. He says the word seed to her in conversation, and she's like, "Repeat that." And he says the wrong thing again, and then repeats seed, and she's like, and because she heard that and she read some random poem the king wrote like 3 weeks ago, she's like, I know what to do. She like rushes back, and so she's the instrument of bringing him to power.
And how she found the adoption papers, I just got to point out. She finds a secret compartment in his desk because she drops some pieces of paper, looks underneath when she's picking it up, and sees a lever. And that's how she finds, like, the hidden adoption papers that nobody knows about in the kingdom.
Which happens a second time because the people who don't know that these adoption papers exist just happen to break into her room, and they're like, there must be something good in here. Adoption papers, and then they have them. There's again, it's just like we have to have some drama here at the end. So let's create this
Up the
weird.
stakes. So,
Oh yeah, create stakes that don't make any sense, but we need them so that the people can be happy that the couple have overcome something because they didn't actually build a relationship.
no.
There's no like they I mean, they're perfectly well. I'm gonna say they're perfectly attractive people. You will disagree with this. I will disagree with this in movie 3. We'll get to that.
He is not, I mean, he looks like a prince. He just is not the most attractive person in the entire world.
When I first introduced this to you, you looked at him and you were like disgusted.
He's not attractive. I mean, he's just not attractive. Like, at least pick somebody hot to be your prince.
I cannot speak to that. I think
he looks like a high school teacher. Like the high school teacher that all the girls are like, oh yeah, he's cute, but he's still just like really plain looking and just on the like edge of being more attractive than not.
I will say neither one of the people. I think Rose McIver, I think that's her name, is perfectly attractive, but neither one of them is hot. And I don't, again, I think that that's the tone that they're going for. Like, they do not want you to think about these two people having sex. Like, they have a baby, but even so, like, that is not the kind of romance that they're having. This is intellectual and, like, warm, fuzzy emotions. Like, he's not interested in getting in her pants. That would be dishonorable.
Yeah, they're in the second one, they don't spend like any alone time together. They like make it a point to like show people that they're like they can't even have 5 minutes to talk to each other, let alone.
Should we move on to the second one then? Because I think
I think so.
Covered most of what I wanted to talk about. They get together at the end because of course they do, and that I think.
Oh no! And he proposes to her after like 3 days of knowing her, which is just like.
I think it's been a couple weeks.
I hate it with movies. I don't think so. Like, she came to that country not long before he was supposed to be she was supposed to be there for the coronation. I don't know. The timeline is very short.
I am willing to listen. You can spend your entire life looking for the perfect person, or you can find somebody who's decent and hope that they're good enough. I'm on board with this short courtship.
Everybody's totally okay with the fact that like the girl who lied and impersonated somebody to stay in their castle for days or weeks or ever, the mom is like, yeah, you know what, I give you my approval because she helped you, she found my dead husband's acorn, like I just feel like there would be a little bit of sort of animosity, but that calls for character development. That, that happened in this movie.
Yes. So they're engaged in movie 1.
At
End
the
of
end.
movie 1, they kiss in the snow because they have to, because that's what you do. And then they you move to movie 2. It's a year later because they all have to take place at Christmas. You get a flashback of them having a relationship. Now, you don't actually get that in the movie. You just like montage, let's assume that they have a relationship because they didn't really have one in 1. They kind of did. They had like the the pieces of a relationship that you have for a movie where he saves her life and they have like their little romantic moment in the cabin, and things are like, the chemistry is implied enough where you're like, okay, fine. But in the second one, they just want you to believe that they've had a great year together, and then they throw you into them having a terrible Christmas with economics involved.
Well, yeah, like the kingdom is in ruin because the king decided to pass this new awesome legislation. It's not called a legislation, but
He's got reforms.
Yeah, he reformed something that's supposed to put money back, and everybody's losing their jobs and everything, and this is happening at the same time that they're supposed to be getting married. And then like the queen hires the most god awful character I think I've ever seen in any movie, which is the fucking bridal.
Sahil is his name, if you're trying to remember.
Yes. He's the wedding planner.
Yes.
Oh my god. I don't see how anybody who would be living in this castle would let that guy talk to them in the way that he talks to anybody. Like, people don't let people talk to people like that.
Well, and that's a problem with this movie, because they have the whole thing of like, we are traditional and we will do this the right way. And then you have Sahil coming in and also bossing her around, and they, like, the supposedly staid and traditional people are helping this flamboyant crazy person bully her. Like, this dude is not gonna have her walk down the aisle in a traditional gown to the traditional music with the traditional flowers. He's trying to put her like on a fashion runway essentially with this crazy dress. And at there's a lot of problems with the second movie, but one of the biggest thematic problems is you have the conflict of everybody in the castle telling Amber, is the lady's name, that she has to do the traditional thing, and why are you weird as an American? I mean, they don't say that, but, you know, that's the implied thing.
How
that
and what and where to do stuff.
She's not stuffy enough, essentially. And then also, here's the craziest, newest, most insane thing you could imagine, and those two things, like, do not mix. And then Sahil is annoying as well, as a character.
It's just awful. And also, speaking of annoying characters, they did a horrible recast for Amber's dad. And it's terrible. He went from this like really loving kind of just like father figure to being this really obnoxious, like stereotypical New Yorker Bronx guy.
And then they hang a lampshade on it. They're like, wow, Dad, you look so different in Mordavia or whatever.
Fun of themselves for every plagiaristic and ripoff that they did in the first one and in the second one, which is like a really weird way to go with it. Like, either ignore it or I don't know.
Well, I'm okay. Here's the problem for me. I'm actually okay with a little bit of like, hey, yeah, we changed it up. Hand wave it. They do it like 3 times. Yeah. There's like 3 different times where they're like, wow, you sure look different in person than your pic. We get it. Like, it is a little bit weird. Like, I didn't actually think too much about it, because the first time I watched them a year apart. Like, I watched the first Christmas Prince like 2017, second Christmas Prince 2018. Watching them all together in a row this year, it's very obvious that they've recast him, and so it's okay to have like a little, okay, yeah, we did something different. I don't know what happened with the other guy, if they just didn't think he was weird enough,
unavailable, or what.
It might just be because they want, like, it's not just that he's doing a stereotype thing. His character is actually obnoxious. Like, not just obnoxious to look at, but he wants to do things that you as a viewer are like, no, you're in a palace. You may not have inflatable reindeer on the
Yeah.
palace. I don't care
Or
how.
like New York hot dogs, like every for the entire place to eat all the time. Like it was, yeah. That, I think that was one of my biggest things that, and he's consistently obnoxious. It's not like just in the beginning where you meet him and you're like, okay, that's the stereotype. It's like every single time he's on screen, you're like, stop, please stop
I love
what
that
you're
your
doing.
webcam is a little bit unstable and it just like shakes every time you hit the
Yeah.
table. It's really conveying your anger there. But it again, it's a thematic like a problem because you're supposed to be on her side with the I'm trying to do new things and break the tradition, but
Modernized,
then
yeah.
the other like her dad who's also supposed to be on that side, you're like, no, I hate you. Stop, go away,
Yep.
do the traditional thing. No reindeer, please. I don't know why you're cooking hot dogs for the queen, but she can afford better food.
Right, and I'm sure like just because the only thing that you eat is not the meat jello or whatever they have, like there's
Yeah,
gonna be other stuff.
and speak.
And I
Okay.
go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, speaking of, we mentioned that there's sort of the sexism angle in the first one where she's like the only woman. Well, they reverse that in this one because her dad comes in and mansplains to the female chef like how you need to cook for royalty, even though this woman's, they don't say, but like you can tell from just her whole deal that she's been like classically trained and has been to culinary school and probably had some like good jobs in some good restaurants before this and really worked her way here. And this dude who owns a diner in New York is like, let me tell you how it's done, toots. Well, you need to get some hot dogs in here and some cookies. I don't do
Some
I
diner
don't
food.
do
That's
a
all
New
she
York
knows.
accent, but this is my impression of the dad. It
Oh,
sucks.
so bad. And I also want to mention, like, before we do get too far into this movie, is that usually, like, whenever you're like binge watching stuff or watching stuff on Netflix, they have like a solid 15 seconds in between um episodes or trailers from the movie or whatnot. I literally watched the first one and they had a 2 second break in between going into the second one. I didn't even know the second one had started. Like, they want you to watch these movies hard. They didn't even give you a chance to think about whether or not you wanted to watch the
Yeah,
second
they
one.
don't
They were
want
like,
you
nope,
thinking
here
about
you
like,
go.
did I enjoy it? What? Oh, the next one's starting. I guess I'm still good. I don't know if that might just be a system-wide change with Amazon with Netflix, where they're because I've started watching Disney Plus and some of their stuff. Like I put on Mickey Mouse shorts for the kids, and those are like 3 minutes long, and then they'll have a 15-second pause in between each one, and I'm thinking, just play the next one, man. I want to keep watching
Well,
these. So
I really wish that they had the 2 second delay from episode to episode on most of stuff, but they don't. Like, that's not a thing. It was
they
only for this movie that I was taken aback by it. I was like, that was really quick transition. I can't even believe it. It was 2 seconds. It was a one and
they
a two, and I tested out for the in
they
between
do
the second
not.
and third.
The other thing is they don't want you listening to the terrible, terrible songs that they have commissioned to play over the credits.
Yeah.
I was watching the third one, and we're gonna get there in a minute. But the third one had some weird song, and they just clicked there. Do you want guys? You want to watch Christmas Inheritance now? How about Christmas Chronicles? Don't keep watching this. We have credits,
Yeah.
but you don't need to watch them.
Yeah, and then at the end of the second one, they had like blooper reels.
Yes, that which was an
And
weird. That wasn't that funny either. Like it
no,
was
they
just
were
like,
like,
oh, I sneezed and blew the take. We kind of laughed. Like that's fine, I guess. It wasn't. It didn't justify itself to me.
yeah. But also, like, the first one was bearable for me to sit through. I hated the second one, and I was live messaging everybody about how I hated it. Like, every single scene where the wedding planner was in, I was just like, people don't talk to each other this way. There's no way in hell that they would let, even no matter how prestigious of a designer or anything, let this person talk to like a queen to be. There's no way. Or even the staff. There is no way staff would talk to a queen to be like this. No way.
That that raises another good point about Richard in this movie because the end of the first movie he promises her, he's like, you can keep your blog, your dad can come to the castle, like You can keep being yourself, essentially. And then in this movie, everybody's trying to tear her down and stop her from being herself, and he does nothing to stop it.
Nothing. Not a
And I mean,
single
like, it
thing.
gets to the point where, like, she's sitting next to him across the desk from somebody telling her, "You have to stop your blog," and he's like, "Yeah, actually, I think you do." And I'm like, "Dump this guy." I mean,
Yeah.
don't, because he's a prince and, like, economically, this is still a great choice. But as a person, you hate him in that moment. Like, you're not supposed to hate the love interest in this. I do not think that they intended for you to really be mad at him, but I loathe that guy so much in the second movie. He is a wet noodle who does nothing.
He was a wet noodle, is right. He had no backbone, no sort of authority. And they even addressed it at one point. He was like, it's a sticky situation because at the end of the day, they work for us, and then the second half of it, it didn't make sense. He was like, but we
I mean, you get the sense, like, if you're a monarch, especially in the 21st century, you can't just be like, and I decree that everybody has to wear purple underwear. Like, people are just going to be like, no, I guess we'll vote for democracy now or something.
Right.
Like, obviously you have a fine line to walk, and don't... That is a problem, though, because another thing that these movies don't want to get into is specifics about anything legal or economic or political. It's just, like, they're an absolute monarchy. It's a king and queen monarchy. Like, there is no other... There's only been one instance of a monarchy like this in the history of monarchies, and it only was one reign. William and Mary ruled as king and queen of England, and other than that, it's just not done. You either have a queen and she's married to a guy who's like a duke or a prince or something, or you have a king and he's married to some lady who's probably some noble person, but you don't have the co-king and queen thing like you do in fairy tales IRL.
I did not know that. I did not realize that.
And technically the queen should have stayed, like, the mom loses her title because he gets married, because he's the king now. I don't even want to get into that morass exactly, because it doesn't really matter. But what is annoying is they introduced this whole economic downturn that has been caused ostensibly by the prince's new policies. And this is the big drama thing, other than she can't do what she wants to do. Like, there has to be some external problem for them to solve.
Because they can't communicate. Like, this was the wedge in between the two. The romance was because he had all of his busy time taken away with this problem that's happening. Even
though, like, you already know they're getting married, and there's never, like, a maybe we should break up moment. So they take the will they or won't they out of the equation for the first movie, which I think is the reason that a lot of, like, TV shows and stuff that have romance in them, and the kind of the type of movie that, or the type of demographic that the first movie was appealing to, often they will have romances stretch on. The one I'm thinking of is When Calls the Heart. Are you familiar with When Calls the Heart? It's like a Canadian frontier type town. It's got a lot of romance and also, you know, sort of smallish drama in it, but they never resolve the romance. Like, you'll have 3 seasons of her will they or won'ting with the guy. They'll finally get married, and then he's dead. Because
it's like the Rachel and
Friends?
Ross. Yeah, okay. Rachel and Ross.
I never saw that. Like, but you have that.
It's like 7 seasons long of will they, won't they? Like, it's
if you have them, they will, right? If you're like, okay, they got together, there's no more dramatic tension, and so it's interesting to me because most movies don't actually get into they get married, they raise a family. Like, there is.
It's just happily ever after.
Right, there is drama in those things, but you can't have that drama and also have that feel-good time. Like, the drama that you have when you're married to someone is like, I don't like you, I gotta live in the same house with you, but I'm mad at you right now, and you're mad at me, and maybe I'm a jerk, and maybe one of us has to change, or, like, we at least have to cool down. Like, it's not the kind of thing that you can, like, get people's hearts fluttering about, so instead, they have this outside force that's pulling them apart, and then what annoys me the most about this situation is it's not actually anybody's, like, it's one person's fault. It's like a person is stealing all of the money.
Which his fake company name is Glockenspiel.
But did you have a problem with that?
That's like what?
That's a musical instrument.
It's like, yeah, but they were like, let's try to think of like the most stereotypically weird German words that we could possibly, like Glockenspiel. It was just like ridiculous. It's not like, you know, Adams and Adams Co. or so, like an actual like company name that they would choose.
Well, companies have weird names. That's fine. I didn't have a problem with that exactly. Of all the things I had problems with, I wasn't like mad about this Glockenspiel thing.
I have problems with everything.
But it's an extra, like, there's nothing that actually needs to be solved. All they have to do is find the one dude who's taking all the money, take the money back from him. Everybody gets their job back immediately, because apparently you can do that when you're king. Everybody gets a bonus. He just announces that they're all gonna get their jobs back. Like, what if the McDonald's is like, actually, we're doing good, we're running leaner, and it turns out we didn't need those extra people. This, you know, like, what? They're all union workers too, I guess. So like, oh, I forgot about the princess's play. The cute princess from the first one has the worst subplot of all time in this one, where she has a play where she kisses a guy, and she's way too young, in my opinion, for me to care about whether she kisses anybody.
No, but the play gets shut down because the theater had to shut down because it ran out of money.
Right, and but they have enough. The thing is, they do have the money to continue putting on the play, and apparently there are still people who will work on putting on the play. They never show anybody picketing outside the theater. I guess there's, like, maybe it's that specific theater they can't do, but they solve the problem by just being like, we'll get different people in a different place to have the play, so it's not a real problem.
No.
They have the money, I guess, to do it. The
lights got shut off. No, the workers at the play
went on strike, I think.
Yeah.
But again, it doesn't matter, because there's other workers who can do, I guess, the same thing, but in the castle, or the palace, or whatever. It's not a castle exactly. It's a real nice, cool European-y manor. That's like, I guess.
Has a dungeon, apparently.
Oh boy, I do love that.
The weird archery, like.
They did it in the first one, and they had to keep going. That's the only thing you know about her character, is that she's bad at shooting a bow. So.
But then she becomes good at it too.
And
like,
she's a blogger.
It's just the way that people talk to each other made this movie unbearable. And then
there's a bearable spot, and I want to call this out. This is the only thing that I like. Okay. They bring back Simon. He was a cartoon villain in the first one, but in movie 2 and movie 3, he's a great, like, chaotic element within the movie, where almost everything else you're like, I know what's gonna happen, I know how this is gonna go, but with him you're like, you went so far into the cartoon villain thing in 1, and you're trying to redeem him now, but because he has so far to be redeemed, you actually get an interesting character. You actually get a guy who's like, I apparently threw away everything. Like,
No, the wife took all his money.
Yes, he got married.
Like 5-minute marriage that he had.
Yes, he got married in the first one because he thought he was going to get the crown. I would have waited until I was king, and then, but again, let's not get into the logic here, because we will get so far into the weeds.
Manipulative.
But he gets a divorce, I guess, sometime in between first and second movie. He's now poor, although he's just around wearing the same clothes. Like, you don't actually, again, nothing actually has consequences.
Other than the car.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, but did we see him in the car at any point?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't. My bad.
From the bar. Yeah, from the bar, they pick it up and they're like, where's the Ferrari?
No, I mean, do we see the Ferrari at any point initially?
No, not in the first one.
Right.
But they talk about it quite a bit. It's
off-screen. Okay.
Yeah. No way could this movie afford to actually, like, borrow
Rent a Ferrari for 2 days?
Bit.
Whoa! What do you think we're making, The Irishman?
Oh. And the difference between the first one and the second one, and I texted this to everybody, is that Amber looks like she has some sort of illness throughout this entire movie. She looks like sickly, like her hair looks like it's falling out, and she's really pale, and like she looks sick to me in this.
I didn't get that. I was watching for it in the second one, and it just I didn't see it. What I did see, and I guess we can move on to the third one now, because this is a decent transition point, is that in the third one, Rose MacGyver looks like she got Botox. Am I crazy on that?
I don't. I think that they got like a. I feel like they got a little bit more money for the third one. Like the first one and the second one did like enough for them to put a little bit more budget in the third one because like her hair is a lot nicer.
Her hair is nicer in the third one, I will say. Yeah,
and like you can tell it's like done a bit better. Like maybe they got a better hair design.
Well, she is the queen
or,
now.
Like makeup and stuff.
Maybe she
like
can
that.
afford it in the universe.
Maybe. But the prince looks terrible in the third one.
His hair gets a downgrade. I don't. And maybe it's just because he's getting older, and your face get older, right? I'm not putting myself out there as like, and look at me. But he hit his peak in the first one, and he's not still at that peak.
I didn't think that he was attractive even in the first one, but by the third one, you're like, ooh. And there was like a weird amount of pajama scenes in this movie. Did you notice that?
I did not notice it. I'm not saying you're wrong. I didn't. She's also like, she's annoyingly thin as a pregnant lady.
Yeah, they're like, she's in her 9th month of pregnancy, and she looks like she's baby 6 months.
I know that happens. I know that there are some women that just carry it like super well. Okay, so I guess I'm a man, so I have nothing to say, really.
Is the right word. Say, like, she carries small.
Okay.
Like, I don't think well is the right word for that.
I mean, if I was a woman and I was pregnant, I would not want to be sticking out to here. Like,
but that's
if you
what
had
happens.
like a box you could check is like the tiny stomach version, please. I would opt for that, and they don't want you to feel bad about anything. So the pregnancy in this is like, she goes into labor. Her water never breaks. There is no mess.
Nope.
There is no like
they
feet
can't
up
even
in
call
stirrups.
It contractions. There's surges.
They mention it. Oh boy. Okay. So third one is about the baby, right? Second one, they get married. There's the drama about the wedding planner and whatnot. Third one, she's pregnant. She's gonna have her baby after Christmas. Like it's gonna come on Christmas because that's the kind of movie it is. But they're not expecting it on Christmas.
Like the first week in January.
I think it's January 11th.
January 11th.
I don't know why I remember that exact date, but I mean, I watched it earlier today, but I'm ashamed that I remember that exact date. But she's pregnant. It's all very, Hallmark movie-esque pregnancy. But the drama in this one is they have to sign this treaty. There's this treaty between Moravia, or whatever the name of it is.
Moravia? Aldavia?
And then there's another country that's like not Mongolia.
Not Pangea, but it's something
Panglia? Maybe?
Panglia.
Something like that. They are sort of more Asian inspired people, even though they're like right next to each other somehow. And it works.
They look Mongolian, yeah.
Visually speaking, it's nice to be like, these people are from here, these people are from here. You don't have to be confused about who's in what camp.
You don't want to think during these movies. You don't want to have to figure out.
No, they're not giving you a puzzle. And they are, once again, you have the tradition versus enlightenment problem. And Amber wants to put her signature as the queen on the treaty. And she wants the other country has that same weird monarchy where it's a king and a queen and they have equal power, sort of, but not. They keep talking about how traditional they are, and then they're like, and we have a woman as one of our absolute rulers. But yeah, you don't get, that's, one of those can be true, but not the other one at the same time, it seems to me. But again, you don't want to think too much about these movies, so they're gonna come and sign the treaty. The treaty
that's
disappears.
Been happening for 600 years.
Right, like every 100 years.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right, so they've, in like 1419, they first signed this treaty to end the war, and then the treaty goes missing. And and you're thinking, okay, great. Who cares? The treaty goes missing. They'll find it eventually. like these two countries aren't going to go to war because neither of them has standing armies. Like they are still at peace, so the idea that they're like continuing this tradition, it's just a tradition, no big deal. But no, you're wrong. Cuz there's a curse.
There's a curse
on the baby.
The firstborn to whoever, you know, fucked it up and decided to ruin the treaty.
Which, by the way, they don't know who lost it. I guess it's just
Right.
on whoever possession it's in, because the last example they go back to of where something went wrong was 200 years ago when it would have been in Aldovia's possession. It changes possession every 100 years as well.
Yeah.
So I guess if you had it last and they don't know who took it, it's your fault. Let's not that we're 41 minutes in here, so let's not get too far into the weeds. But they have to go and find this treaty because there's a curse, and their initial reaction is a normal 21st century human reaction of who cares, it's a curse. And then little cripple orphan Annie girl says, she's not an orphan, I mean she's super rich, but you know, they're all really nice even though they're really rich. So don't think too much about that. She says but it's gonna be a curse on the baby, even though she's not supposed to tell her this. Like the queen's
the queen
like,
told her
shut your mouth. Why would you bother somebody about a curse on their baby? Like if it's true, it's not gonna help them.
Born in a couple of weeks, you know, like.
But they like all of a sudden it's life or death. There's not even like specified what the curse would be. There's no she'll be deformed or be real dumb or like die before
Never
they're
find
20.
a married, yeah, like.
No, there's nothing like that. It's just they will be cursed. And then
and the mom freaks the fuck out.
We have to find this paper now or my baby might 1 in a billion. She even calls out that it's like it's a 1 in a billion chance, but I can't take that chance. Yes, this was going to be the worst helicopter mom in the history of the world, because there's always a 1 in a billion chance that your child dies. Okay? Like, they're stupid and clumsy when they're 1 year old, and you can't just be like,
and
don't do that. What? Nope.
Sometimes it's just yeah. Anyways, apart from babies dying and everything, there's a few really weird subplots in this. Like, they're trying to figure out... No, that's the second one. The hackers in the second one?
Oh, yeah.
I forgot to talk about the hackers!
Go back you can talk about the hackers, and this is partly Simon. Simon comes in and he's like, I'll help you solve it. And then he's like, looking at the print, you solve it. I'll go to the bar.
Yeah,
essentially.
Like, apparently out of nowhere, little crippled princess is a hacker now, and they have to hack the system, and she like says all this technical gobbledygook, you know,
and then it means nothing.
And then it means nothing because she's been hacking all night, but really they show she's just trying to guess the password for the guy's like login, and then she slams her fist down on the keyboard, and it's like, oh, that's what did it. Like,
it's just, they literally couldn't think of a good like. They couldn't make her smart. The people who wrote this movie were not smart enough to think of a smart thing she could do to guess the password. So they're just like...
Even Simon had a good idea. He was like, I can ask him what his dog's name is if that's the password, and that would have been hilarious if that would have worked out, you know? Because it wasn't even that, it was like the Hall of Records login. It wasn't even like somebody's, you know, banking. Well, I mean, it was.
Yeah, and they're the nobility. They should just be able to get it. She should just be able to go and say to her brother, who is the king, hey, we're trying to figure out what's going on with all of the money that's leaving the country.
Oh, no, but when Amber mentioned that in the second one, they're like, no, this isn't your job to figure this out. You stick in your lane there, lady.
Anyways,
okay,
moving back to the third one, there's a mystery. There is a red herring subplot. Do you want to talk about this, or did you have something else you wanted to get to?
They brought back the wedding planner in the third movie.
Who is a suspect, because everybody is.
No reason why they should bring him back for any logical reason at all. They brought him back. Why?
I don't...
It was terrible.
It's bad. And
red herring. That was not the red herring.
No. Well, so there is the, like, have to rule him out, I guess, although they never really do. But the red herring is that Simon is now set up with Amber's friend from the first and second movie,
The best friend,
the
yeah.
best friend. The gay best friend is also set up with the wedding planner guy now. Although, again, because they don't want anybody to turn it off. They don't actually like explicitly say that anything about them like being together. They're business partners, and they're together. But
They're in the same room.
you can
So I
kind
guess
of
that's all
deny
you
it,
need.
like if you're like, well, it's still they don't actually. If you want to be like that
That
person,
person.
you they give you enough wiggle room to get out of it. But the Simon and Amber's best friend, they have a thing going on. And
And
again,
surprises,
right?
like, oh, surprise, I'm visiting you for Christmas. I didn't think to ask the queen if I could stay at her house at all, you know?
Well, also, I'm not going to dig into that because nothing makes sense in these movies, and I don't care that much. But what is interesting is they're in a relationship. Simon and best friend girl are in a relationship, and Simon once again is the most interesting character in the movie because he's also got this old college flame who he clearly at least has some chemistry with, who works for the other country. So they were at school together. They both, graduated. She went off to be the attaché of the king and queen. And when the thing went missing, because she was like a sticky wicket in the happiness of Simon and the best friend girl, I was like, she did it. I called this in the chat. I was wrong, by the way.
Yeah.
If anybody's ever looking for me saying I'm wrong on camera, there's one of them. I've said it before, but I've been wrong before.
Somebody
but-
clip it.
But like I thought what they were gonna do was say, okay, she stole the thing, she's evil for some reason. It doesn't matter what the reason is, but now she's out of the way, and Simon can get with the best friend girl, and there's no love triangle. They actually go a little bit more subtle than that, and Simon proves to be once again the kind of character that you can maybe think is capable of doing bad because he was so evil in the first movie. Which makes him, again, basically the only interesting person. When they actually do solve the mystery, they do a thing I liked. They did one thing I liked. They brought in the dungeon. There is this thread of references to the dungeon throughout the movies. In the first movie, the princess says, "I'm gonna have you thrown in the dungeon," like to a reporter who's bugging her. He runs off really scared. Rose MacGyver's character Amber says,
Oh, yes. Spoopy.
She says, I am, like, do you really have a dungeon? And the princess says, no, we actually don't. In the second movie, in the showdown, which I forgot to mention involves the bow again for no reason. I hate to keep going back to the second movie. She pulls a bow on the guy who is stealing, even though you know she's not going to shoot him, and the conversation they have after she pulls the bow on him could have been just the conversation they had where he's like, you can't prove it, and they're like, yes, we can. She threatens somebody with bodily harm for no reason. But at the end of that conversation, the queen says, and you're going in the dungeon. And they're like, oh, we do have a dungeon. Well, the third movie, they actually pay off the existence of the dungeon, and they set it up earlier in the story that the groundskeeper had talked about. I saw a ghost down, or is the groundskeeper? I forget what his title is. But the queen and the princess, because there's nobody else in the castle than the somewhat elderly queen and the spina bifida having princess to do this job. Amber has them go out down into the cellar / dungeon of the castle, not for any particular reason as far as I could tell, just because
because they
hadn't
think the
checked
ghost stole. They think that the ghost stole the scroll.
She legitimately thinks it's a ghost that stole.
She thinks there's a curse. Like
I cannot stand the fact that she succeeds by being. I just thought it was a lucky guess. The fact that it's even more worse than that she's just stupid is worse. But she has them go down in the dungeon. They find the scroll.
How did they even get locked in? I lost.
The wind blew the door. They needed there to be some drama, and something got to happen in your movie, Komette.
Yes, an iron barred door got the wind caught it and shut
They're
it.
so well oiled. There's a guy down there like literally every day with an oiling them up because he takes pride in his work, I guess.
He does.
And then the cell they get trapped in just happens to have the scroll, and they just happen to find it, and then they Skyrim their way out of there after
Oh
they.
yeah, the hairpin after they were stuck for however long. The queen's like, oh wait, and then she just like sticks it in and it works, and you're like,
It's
yes.
it's the same thing with the hacking from the first movie because they
Yeah.
have a prolonged scene where they're trying to get the keys, and then when it's time for them to get out, again the writers couldn't think of anything clever. Like I'm smarter than the writers of this movie, okay? And I'm gonna prove it right now because there is a clever solution to this. They're in a dungeon, it's enclosed, and yet there's a draft. Every single story where there's a cave or an enclosed space with a draft, there's a secret exit. They end up closed in a cell. I was positive they were going to find like a secret tunnel that had the thing in it that the person who stole the thing had used to hide it. That's why they hadn't found it. That's why there was a draft.
Scooby-Doo.
Right. That would have been, and then they would have been able to get out because it would have had access to the outside of the castle. They rush in. It's okay right before midnight. Nope, it's the hairpin thing. I'm not that smart, but I'm smarter than these people who wrote this stupid movie.
I don't even know how. And then the final thing, she's in labor, like full on labor, right? And she's like, "Oh, but I know who did it." You know, the whole Scooby-Doo reveal.
Right. Yep. Okay. Yep. This is my favorite and most hated thing in this movie simultaneously. Continue.
No, yeah.
Well.
You go for it.
It's the Sherlock Holmes parlor scene, right? Every great detective movie, I just saw Knives Out, right? They do it in this where, like, you gather... Actually, I don't think they gather all the suspects in Knives Out, but they gather the people who are relevant, and they're like, we know you did it, and here's how you did it, and, you know, then the person's like, how could you possibly... You know, or, you know, has some kind of outburst or whatever, and admits to it, right? It's a trope of detective movies, but you have it happening in the middle of a nursery with the pregnant lady, like, everybody gather around and I'm about to bust open this mystery for you guys. Oh, there's a contraction. It was him. And the reveal, again, I'm going to call the people out who wrote this movie as not being very smart because the reveal is just, it's the thing you never do. The person that they revealed who did it is in essence a non-character. If it hadn't been him that did it, I would have forgotten that he existed in the movie. Yeah, like
because she found a family tree that so happened to share the same name.
These guys
took a blood oath.
Haven't watched a episode of NCIS because every single episode of NCIS is a more interesting mystery than this. There are some bad episodes of NCIS, but they're all like, they introduce you to all the people. They give you like little bits of the clues. You like by the time you get to the end, you have an understanding of the character who committed the crime. They had a motive. This guy is, I mean, he has a motive technically, but you're supposed to introduce that stuff like to the character early in the movie. They introduce the elements of like, there's this family thing where this guy thought this family killed this family way back in the day. And then they're like, and who was it in that family? Which they solved by having the prince fall asleep and not answer the question. You remember that? When they're on the couch in their pajamas? You called out pajama scenes. She's like, she's reading the book about the names, and she's like, Devin, where have I heard that name? And like pans over to the prince, and he's like, that's how they get out of having that reveal halfway through the movie. Is just have the dude fall asleep.
That's hilarious.
But the third one's better than the second one, in my opinion.
Yeah. And it was just and then so after the whole reveal and they sign the treaty and it's happily ever after, you know, the mom who's having the baby was like, okay, it's time, and then the nurse is like, okay, we're gonna have this baby, everybody needs to leave. It's like, oh yes, because the mom knows when it's time, you know, like not the professional who's medical and everything like that. It is just.
Speaking of the medical professional, don't forget the subplot of the doctor coming to the thing and getting in the lamest car crash of all time, where her
And then the
car's
princess
just
becomes save.
stuck. I will say it was nice to give him something to do. He needed some kind of hero moment for
Other
me.
than building the crib that was
From IKEA? The royal
Yeah.
crib from IKEA? Like they make that joke of like this thing has so like he holds up like a
it's like a
dictionary
book.
of
Yeah.
like these things are so hard to put together, and it's a stupid joke to have that thickness of a book, but okay. But the main problem I have is you're royalty. You are absolute monarch of a small nation, admittedly, but money doesn't seem to be a problem. There is no way that you're buying a thing that comes in a flat box like from, Amazon
IKEA.
and putting it together. Like, have the castle wood carver make this for you.
Yeah. Or some local person who would love to have, it's ridiculous.
Well,
I
it's
forgot
because
to talk about the conga line in the second movie.
uh,
They
they
brought
had a conga line.
line.
You hated it. I know. I
just-
didn't. I hate it as much as you did. I don't think, but so these
I'm
movies
seeing
aren't
if I have
good.
any other-
I think is my takeaway. They're not great, but if you watch 1 and you watch 3, they're okay to watch. I think I think 2 gets annoying. 2 goes to Sharknado 4 territory, and if you haven't seen Sharknado 4, thank your lucky stars tonight that has not been inflicted upon you, because Sharknado 4 is real bad. But
So, how much would you recommend to these?
how much would I recommend them?
Yeah, like out of
Everybody
10.
should watch 1. Everybody should watch the first one. It's lovely and feel good. If you have, it's the kind of, and I brought up Sharknado for a reason, because what is lovable about Sharknado is the same thing that's lovable about the good moments. Not good. Not good. I'm sorry. Not the good moments. The moments.
Feel good.
Yeah, the moments that you enjoy. I enjoy about these movies. I watched the first one the entire way through, and I smiled the whole time. And most of the time for the third one, I smiled watching, because it's just ridiculous and fun, and I loved it. I I had a good experience watching these movies, thinking about all of the terrible. I mean, just like the same kind of experience I had talking about them, where it's like it's fun to think about
lot of
how awful
laughing.
this is, and yet it's
Yeah.
not offensive. There's nothing
Yeah.
like wrong. There's plenty wrong with it, but like you don't.
Offensive is a good word.
Offensive is the good word for the second one.
Yeah.
It is offensive. Inoffensive, I would say, for the other two. They've kind of found their stride. I think they're trying to do too much in the second one. Like the first one is the best one because it's the simplest one. It's real basic. Even the first one has maybe too much in it, because they have the trying to steal the adoption subplot, and then like the decision the king has to make. Like, you should have cut one of those.
Mhm.
But it's not that bad. And you watch these and you're like, yeah, they're sledding, they're rich, they have a nice thing. Like, the problems they have to deal with are not the same problems I have to deal with. It doesn't get too real. So
Yeah.
I enjoy these. I'm looking forward. I don't know if there is a place to go for Princess. No, I'm sorry. No, there's no princesses. Then there's no prince anymore either. He's the king.
Yeah.
But Christmas Prince 4 and 5 had better get into like the magic realms. We've confirmed the existences of curses now. Let's go full Nutcracker and go to another world, baby. Aldovia is
From
like
the
a
dungeon.
parallel dimension or something. Go off the rail. Go fast and furious with this thing and really get bonkers now that you're past movie 3.
Right now.
Because
Why not,
nobody
right?
wants to see a movie about toddlers. Let me tell you, I have some toddlers. Do not make Christmas Prince 4
Rugrats.
the toddler dimension.
Look Who's Talking is a great toddler movie.
I'll take your word for it. I'm not watching that one.
Yeah, I thought the first one was okay. It was bearable. I hated the second one. Like, the second one could be completely erased from my brain. And then third one was just as enjoyable as the first one. I would never go out of my way to watch any of these movies. But if you want a good background for a Christmas movie, pick It's a Wonderful.
Yeah, it's one of those movies where it doesn't matter if you missed the previous hour of the movie. You're fine. It doesn't. they're gonna tell you what they said already anyway when they do the reveal. Like, do you remember when we said the
Exactly.
thing about the guy who murdered the other guy? Well, it turns out, yeah,
Yep,
that's the kind of
perfect.
movie that we're talking about. I hope
Oof,
that
yeah.
you have enjoyed our pain, maybe, uh,
Or
with
discomfort.
watching all three of these movies back to back to back. I hope that you guys are having a lovely and Merry Christmas, and that your life is as real drama free as these people's are, because they ain't got nothing really going on.
The
They're,
goals. That's the goals in life.
I'm a prince and my economy is slightly less good than it was last year. I have to pay off my $5 billion debt. That's a real thing that happens in the third movie. They pay off the debt. Merry Christmas, guys!
Okay, bye.